Alrighty, thank you for taking your time today to kind of talk about the observation that we had earlier. Really great things that I saw. I really did like the activities that you were doing. It looked like your kids knew what to do. They came in, they were seated, they knew the expectations, so I want to applaud you on that. We had 15 kids engaged. Does that sound about right for your class size?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, did you have anybody that was absent today?
I had 2 absent.
2 absent, okay, alright, not a problem. So looking at your warm-up, it was a small group. Is that an individual activity or a group activity usually?
So for this week, it's going to be a group activity.
Okay.
And then next week, it's going to be individual.
Okay.
And then we're going to go over it as a review.
Alright.
But this week is just a teaching moment.
Okay.
I let them know that too because they're unfamiliar with this.
Mm-hmm.
So I want them to understand it as a tool they can use
Awesome.
for the next week.
I love that. I did write down some glows and some bros, and I gave you a second earlier to kind of look over what it is that we did. I really liked how you shifted gears when technology wasn't working great. I know that a lot of times now we rely heavily on technology.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was really good that you were able to shift gears without the kids really noticing and without really missing a beat. I also really liked how you didn't just tell them, no, this is the wrong answer, this is the right answer. You kind of led some questioning to it. I thought that was really great. It's helping, because I know right now we have a lot of learned helplessness. So helping them kind of build those critical thinking skills, or what's our word that we like, productive struggle?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the what is the question really asking activity was really great. I enjoyed that. I think that's something that a lot of teachers could use, not just in English, but in any tested subject, especially with STAR coming up.
That breaks it down to the question.
Yeah. Some things that I noticed, I know you said you had a couple that were out today, and I know you said that's one of your more difficult classes, but what are some things that you could do to cut down on the extra noise? You did a great job of the planned ignoring. I could tell that was there, but what are some things that you think could help mitigate some of the...
What drives me nuts the most is the fidgets. There needs to be some quieter fidget. And they bring those in themselves, so a lot of the time I have a collection in my drawers of fidgets. They're 3D printed, so they want to brag about it when they walk in, and that's fine. I mean, I 3D print too, I get it, but that one is the most annoying thing I've ever heard in my life. It's just, so I mean, after you left, after the warm-up was over, I went over and took it away from them because I couldn't do it the rest of the class period.
I gotcha.
But I guess just finding those different fidgets for them to mess with, because I do have a lot of ADHD in my class period, so it's going to be a lot of needing to do something with their hands to pay attention.
Okay.
But yeah, the planned ignoring. I've gotten great at it.
It was great. Because it wasn't enough to, I don't think, disrupt the rest of your students, but...
It was enough to get me off task, because I'm just like they are.
Yes.
But I'm very used to him, so I was able to get through that.
Gotcha. What are some ways that you can encourage some different students to answer? I noticed you had a couple that were real eager to answer the whole time.
I have a randomizer on my phone through the live school.
Okay.
And I was going to try to do that, but I wasn't loading fast enough.
Gotcha.
So, technology couldn't do that. But I did start asking others, the ones that I knew they were paying attention, but they weren't wanting to raise their hand.
Right. Okay, all right. What are some things that you think went really well with that little bit of time that I was in there?
Even in my first class and this class, they were very much understanding of the breaking down of the question. I even had a couple say, I think I understand what we're doing now, and so tomorrow I'm gonna kind of pull back and let them do the first one on their own. So but I think they were able to comprehend it really well and understand why we were doing it, because STAR is coming up, we got benchmark coming up, but also questions in general, not just on the STAR. They need to understand how to break things down, and so they understood that as well.
Okay, awesome. What's an area that you feel like maybe you struggled with a little bit, or you would like to do a little differently, or
the different students to answer. I struggle with that all the time.
Right.
I know it's hard with that class because they come after lunch and they're tired, and I get it, but then I'm like, okay, well, I've got the same 5 kids answering the questions, and the rest of you need to wake up. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to do that randomizer a lot more. And just kind of rely on that more, just have it on before they even walk in the room.
Do you do the live school points? So like if they do get picked by the randomizer, they get a point for answering? Okay, awesome. I did notice the one student that you corrected when she was on her Chromebook while y'all were supposed to be working. Is that a recurring problem with that particular student?
No, typically she's asleep.
Okay.
I tend to push her to sit closer to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that day she decided to sit over there, and I think it's because the desk was over there, that was her desk, but it just happened to be over there,
Gotcha.
so she just sat over there.
Gotcha.
But because of all the Chromebook issues today, I didn't want them to shut them. I wasn't sure if that was going
Fair
to jack everything up that we had already fixed, so I didn't mind her having it open, but yeah, she wasn't writing. So.
Okay, I gotcha. I really did like that resource. So where did you find that resource?
We did it this morning in PLC before I even got to teach anything. It was perfect timing. I thought it was such a great resource. I wanted to incorporate it. I went ahead and just scrapped all my warm up and made this the warm up because they need to know how to use it anyway.
Right.
But yeah, this morning in PLC, our principal taught us how to use it.
Okay,
So.
that's awesome. Does your principal help out a lot with that kind of stuff in PLCs?
Yes.
Okay.
So she'll come in, she'll bring a suggestion in. Coming up to STAR, I want to take a lot of those suggestions and actually apply them.
Mm-hmm.
Like the day that she teaches us, I want to, at least if I feel confident enough.
Right.
There was a grammar lesson that she taught us. I'm going to do that probably at some point this week. I'm going to start doing that.
Okay.
But this resource, I felt like it was just so important. I needed to know it. So.
Okay. So talking about the STAR and all that kind of stuff, how do you think that this particular one, I know we were talking about the questioning, how do you think that it prepares your students for STAR?
Well, it is based off of STAR questions.
Okay.
It was 2024 STAR test questions.
Oh, nice.
It's just without the passage.
Okay.
So we're just breaking down the question itself. I had to explain to them. I had to ask them, what did they notice was missing?
Right.
The passage was missing, so how are we going to answer this question? We're not going to answer this question. We're going to break the question down because that's their problem. They want to speed through. They want to read the question and say, oh, I think this is what I know. But did they actually go back and reread the question?
Right.
So I feel like that's going to help them prepare by realizing they need to go back and reread.
Okay. Awesome. When it comes to like how you group your students, I noticed you had a couple, it was mostly groups of 2. Do you do different groups each week, or do you keep it pretty much the same, or how do you?
It depends on the students. I have a lot of students in there that get the option of preferred seating, so it doesn't stay the same ever.
Okay.
I have some that prefer sitting in the same spot all the time, so then that creates, well, okay, you can sit here, but now I've got to move somebody else.
Right.
And if it's working and I've noticed that no one's having any issues, then I leave it
Right.
until it doesn't work anymore.
Okay.
So they know that I'm always going to move the desk. They always ask, Mr. Stone, why do you always move the desk? Well, I'm like, well, don't get comfortable. It's always going to move. So.
Okay. Well, I know my students, they always came in, especially the last few years when I was teaching, it was what does the desk arrangement look like today?
Yeah.
Because, it just depends on how they do. I get that. Do you plan on, with the resource that you had, do you plan on going further and having them eventually answer the question with?
Yes, so we're going to do it we're going to break the question down, and then I'm going to eventually roll in that passage. And then they're going to break down the passage with the breakdown of the question.
Okay.
But I feel like it's going to take some time.
Right.
We're getting there. But I do hope to get the passage incorporated at some point.
What support would you want from principals, from people that are coming in to observe you like me, or anybody else on campus?
Honestly, I'm always open to anything. If you notice something's not going as well as you think it could, any suggestions? I'm not one to take offense to anything. I know I'm new. I'm not new, but I'm new enough that I know that I'm not perfect. No one's ever going to be perfect. So I feel like if you notice something that could go better, please let me know.
Awesome.
I'm open to anything.
Well, I think you're doing a great job. Would you be willing, if you were asked to present on this particular activity that you were doing, would you be willing to share it with the rest of the campus?
Yes. I mean, sure.
Okay, all right.
I can explain it to them, yeah.
Yeah. I really do think it's a valuable resource that all subjects could use. It's not something that is just ELA based.
Yeah.
I did notice that you had a student that was sitting back there at his own individual desk. Does that have to do with a focus thing? Is that part of his preferential seating, or is it?
It was an odd switch that day, or today in that case. He does get preferential seating. He sat at the table in front of that table at that group, but I noticed that they weren't getting along at the beginning of class.
Okay.
I said, hey, this seat's empty today. If you want to sit here, you can sit back here.
Okay.
And it did help him concentrate. So
Fantastic. I like that you were watching for those issues and trying to.
Especially with that class, I have to. I have to be on top of it.
Understood. Well, we do have about 10 minutes left in our conversation. What is something that you could do. Could you work that into like a station rotation? Could you
Oh,
work in
the activity?
yeah, the activity?
I definitely think it could be. I feel like it could go maybe a question each station, and then have them break it down in
Okay.
each group. Maybe a couple stations with the question broken down and passages on the other table
Oh,
to kind of see how that goes.
I gotcha. Okay. Would that be something that maybe you could do like a gallery walk in, or
They definitely could do that too.
definitely do
yeah.
a gallery walk? Okay, fantastic. For your students that like to repeat answer questions,
Mm-hmm.
is there something that you've done at the beginning of the school year that maybe made them enjoy answering questions in your class? Do you think that's a common behavior for them, or
It's just that one specific student.
it's just that one specific?
And
Okay.
he gets so upset if I don't pick on him, even if the answer is right or wrong.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if I've already asked, gotten an answer from him.
Mhm.
He always wants to raise his hand, and I get it.
Mhm.
I get it, but he doesn't let anyone else speak.
I gotcha.
And so that's whenever I do the planned ignoring, and then I pick someone else because it's always his hand's always the first one up. He hasn't even listened to the question yet, and his hand is up.
He already has an answer.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
I'm like, okay.
What type of behaviors do you notice are the most disruptive in that class?
There's humming.
Okay.
It's like the lower fidgeting, humming. It's just those noises that really, because then it distracts me, but it also distracts people around them.
Okay.
And once I get it to stop, it stops.
Mhm.
But it's the task getting it to stop.
Gotcha. So if, say, a student is doing a repeated behavior, so you've asked them multiple times, hey, put that away, stop doing that noise, what's your next step whenever it comes to?
I give them 3 warnings. That's my max. Sometimes it's 2, depending on if they're just being disrespectful with it. Then it's lunch tension.
Okay.
If they continue after that, then I go to the next step. Okay, well, you're going to call your parent. We're going to go call your parent right now. Let's go to the hallway, call your parent. It doesn't ever get that far typically, because after I give them lunch tension, they kind of shut it all off,
Right.
because they realize the next step's going to be a parent phone call.
Okay.
So,
If you were to give any suggestion to like a brand new teacher, what is the number one thing for a class like the one that you have? What suggestion would you give them on how to handle situations where there's disrespect, situations where there's a technology issue or anything?
for disrespect, I feel like you can't really take that personally.
Mhm.
Like, that's just the student. You can't let it affect your emotions, because once your emotions are, once you're affected by it, they can tell. They're trying to get a rise out of you.
Right.
And then the technology thing, I've dealt with technology for the last 3 years in education, and it's never going to work perfect. And especially this year, it's my first year with just the Chromebooks and Amplify, because I only had books last year, so I was able to just pass the book out. We're going to just we're going to look up at the board, and we're going to do it in our books. This year, I've had to pivot and learn everything there is to do about amplifying computers. And like today, with the whole update with the passwords and all that change, I expected some chaos. And my Chromebook card also was not working today for some reason. And so I just said, okay, well, since we're only doing IXL, just don't stress about it, because we're going to have time again at some point.
Right.
But just pivot.
Okay.
Because I had an activity plan without the Chromebook anyway. So pivot to something else. And if you have all the resources that you need, then you'll be fine without a Chromebook.
What makes you most comfortable with admin coming in your room? Like, do you ever feel when an admin comes into your room that it is oh my gosh, they're here to judge me kind of thing?
No, not this year.
Not this
Last year
year?
it felt like that, but last year was my first full year on my own. And the year before that I didn't get evaluated because I was pushed in half a year. Last year it felt like everyone was coming in to judge me, but I wasn't here. This year, and after some open conversations with some admin, I don't feel like I'm being judged. And I've also opened up and said, hey, I know you're not judging me, but can you please give me some pointers?
Right,
Anything that you come in and see that you think could be better, please. I'm open to anything. So I don't feel like I'm being judged. If anything, it helps. When they walk in with some of the behaviors, they just diminish as soon as they walk in.
Oh, yes.
So,
as soon as admin walks in, the kids just...
So it's helpful, and I'm able to continue on. And half the time I'm doing small group whenever they walk in, so.
Okay. Well, I know small group is a big focus that we're looking at this year, so I know them seeing you doing that is a real reassurance to the fact that you are doing a great job or you're doing a good job. what are some things that you would want from me based off of our grows and our glows that we have here?
Suggestions about cut down on the extra noise.
Suggestions,
So what are
okay.
some other things that could use that wouldn't be as loud?
Okay. So I know for me personally, I use a fidget ring
Mhm.
because I'm the same way. I like to mess around. It's got a little bit of a noise to it, but for the most
Not
part, it's
noticeable.
not super loud.
Yeah.
You can make something like this with a pipe cleaner,
Oh.
where they can put it on their finger and just spin it. So if they twist it around, you could do something like that. I do like that you have the other fidgets, the quiet fidgets that we can
Mhm.
trade out. Maybe have like a parking lot, kind of like
Okay.
you had for your pencils where they
Oh.
were signing it out.
Put their loud fidget for a quiet one?
Yes.
Okay.
But that way, it's not like you're taking it from
Right.
them and they don't think that they're not ever going to get it back. They
Mhm.
can, we're just going to put it here for now, and it's going to live on this parking spot,
Mhm.
and then we can come back
Okay.
and get it. Overall, I think you're doing a fantastic job. I would love to see the next time we come in, maybe if we could get some different kids to answer.
Okay.
And have some different responses. I'm really impressed with the amount of kids that were responding though. Usually whenever you come in, you see like 1 or 2 kids.
Yeah.
You had about 4 or 5 that
Mhm.
were just jumping at the bit to answer
Mhm.
questions.
Yeah.
So that was really impressive. Do you ever do a teacher table whenever it comes to small
Yes.
group activity?
Yes. So during that second half of class when the bell rings, we switch over. I'm forcing myself to
Mhm.
switch out of Amplify because it's hard sometimes. We have to keep going, but
Mhm.
I stop it because I want that extra time for them to come up to my table.
Mhm.
I have a table built in right beside my desk,
I saw that.
so that I pull 2 or 3.
Mhm.
I can also fit a 4th one in front of me if I really want to.
Okay.
Like today, I had an activity planned where the other kids had a whole entire activity they were doing. I explained it to them, and I told them the voice volume expectations.
Mhm.
They were very good with it. Each class was very good with it. I was able to actually pull 2 at a time. I'm trying to get through each kid in my class, not just a certain one. I want to get to each one of them to see what we need to work on.
Mhm.
We had inferencing questions on task cards, and we broke it down, highlighted, answered, discussed inferencing and evidence, kind of broke the questions down like we did at the beginning of
At
class
the
too.
beginning. Okay.
So,
Go ahead.
so they were good with it. I only had 2 at a time. It took
Okay.
about 15 minutes each group.
It's not bad.
Not terrible.
Okay, so you said that it was real successful. You were able to do that. What have you done beforehand to make the teacher table successful, to where the rest of your class knows, hey, this time period I am dealing with these students and just these students.
I think it helps whenever they have an activity they enjoy.
Okay.
Having an interactive, some sort of, like last week I had the ELA flicks. It looked like Netflix, but it was set up for them to watch
Oh, how cool.
the shorts,
Mhm.
the little Pixar shorts, and then they were drawing inferences from that and identifying the theme.
Okay.
And so I explained it to them. I think is on Mondays I teach them the
Mhm.
activity. That way throughout the week they're successful with it. But they would leave me alone completely, and I was able to get my full group because they were so
Awesome.
interested in that activity. So like I said, but on those other activities when they're not so interested, I do tend to put them in a group of 2 or 3
Okay.
to help with each other. And then it helps whenever I have like Miss Johnson come in
Mhm.
because then she can rotate around the room. But I do also have a set time where I'm doing like a 3 minutes at my table with my group,
Mhm.
going over the answers. Then I'll have 2 minutes to get up and walk around. Then I come back to my teacher table.
Okay.
And then I make sure I give hand signals. So instead of telling you you have a pass in the system, just put an R up and I'll give you a
Okay.
thumbs up or thumbs down. Don't walk up to my desk. And they were like, okay, yes, ma'am.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I am really happy with what I'm seeing. I can't wait to come back to your room. I may try and come back in the second half of
Okay,
that class
for the
just to
small
see what the small group looks like. But
Okay.
I think you are doing a great job on all the things. You've engaged all the kids. You were actively watching what they were doing. You were getting them to do the work with you and not just talking to them.
Yeah.
So I'm really impressed. Do you have any questions?
No.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.